Welcome to Mortification of Spin, a casual conversation about things that count, with Carl Trueman, Todd Pruitt, and Amy Bird. Mortification of Spin is a weekly podcast from the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. Bereavement, a touchy subject that too few dare talk about, even and sometimes especially within the walls of the church. Today's guest, Nancy Guthrie, shares some of her thoughts on the Christian's response to suffering and grief. Keep listening after the conversation to find out how you can download a free audio message from the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals.
Well, welcome to the Mortification of Spin. Today we are privileged to have a special guest whose identity will be revealed in just a moment, but I want to take your minds back to an event of roughly 12 months ago when regular listeners will remember that we conferred a singular great honor upon Mrs. Amy Bird when she joined the show, and we actually elected her as an honorary guy. Well, only for the second time in recorded history are we going to do that today. We're delighted to be welcoming to the program the well-known writer, Nancy Guthrie. And before we interview her, we are going to call this meeting to order and elect Nancy as only the second honorary guy in history. Now, there have been objections to us doing this. It emerged as we were going through the very rigorous investigative process. It has emerged that Nancy is teetotal, which is something of a black mark when it comes to the election process. But then it was pointed out to me that Amy Bird's favorite drink is Miller Genuine Draft. That is the equivalent of being teetotal, and therefore we've already set the precedent. So I'll call the meeting to order and ask for the appropriate motion.
Carl, I'd like to move that Nancy Guthrie be made an honorary guy.
Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Discussion?
None from me.
Nope.
Call for a vote. All those in favour say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. I declare the motion passed. Nancy, congratulations. You are the second honorary guy in the history of the world. You can go away and drink a celebratory Miller Genuine Draft with Amy later.
And it was so Presbyterian. That's what I liked about it.
I wasn't sure if I was allowed to speak against the motion.
You can now. We can revisit it at our next meeting.
Or to raise my hand, in regard to reasons by which I might not fit for this. I can't be highly emotional.
Right.
I'm really not interested in watching sports.
You could call maybe for the formation of a study committee. To look into it.
And here's the other thing: I'm really happy being a girl.
Yeah, I struggle with that myself.
Join girlfriends. Mm-hmm. So I'm honored. I can tell that this feels to you as a great honor.
To you.
I don't want to spit in the face of honor.
Well, we felt good about making you an honorary guy though, because you seem to have a sense of humor. And we just thought that would be
that's pretty much their only
fit.
Standard.
Exactly.
I must say I do love to laugh.
Well, there you go.
Well, Nancy, in the great American news tradition of moving from complete trivia to extremely serious topics, one of the many things that you do in your Christian ministry, and perhaps the thing which is that for which you're best known, are the respite retreats that you and your husband David have been doing for some years now. I wonder if you'd like to tell our listeners something about the origins of this idea and what have been the highs and lows of putting on these retreats over the last few years.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm so well known for them. It's one of those ministries that is incredibly small, but at the same time, incredibly big and significant, at least I believe. David and I, my husband David and I, we have a son, Matt, who's in college, and we also had two children, a daughter, Hope, and a son, Gabriel, who each lived 6 months. And so our experience of going through the loss of two children, as you might imagine, was very significant in our lives. And in many ways, it was my writing out of that experience, but probably in a deeper way, my searching the scriptures to make sense of that experience, out of which my writing began. That really significantly changed the course of my life and our lives, really. And so I did write a number of books out of our experience with losing Hope and Gabriel, who, by the way, Gabe died 13 years ago today. And so after I wrote these books, there were lots of people who would get in touch with us who were going through the loss of a child, and I began to do lots of just interacting with grieving people, either where I was speaking or people calling me or writing me. And one time about 5 years ago, this couple from Louisiana wrote me. They said, we're going to be in Nashville and we would love to get together with you and David and to talk about this. And so we met them at a restaurant, same restaurant I ate with you, Carl.
I remember.
You were here once in Nashville. Yeah. And when we left the restaurant, we had a really sweet time with them. And one thing that was David and I had begun to see, and it was so clear on that interaction, was the difference between when I interact with a grieving mother and when it's couple with couple. Because with grief, we all have an individual aspect to getting through the grief. But in something like losing a child, there's the family and the couple and the marriage. It has its own identity of how are we going to get through this grief. And couples struggle to grieve individually and yet together. And they grieve differently. And, in the midst of so much pain, to try to give each other grace, to grieve in a different way, to think a different way about it, all those things. It's just incredibly challenging. And so we were driving home from that dinner, and I said to David, I wonder if we could start a retreat for couples who have lost children. And we knew of a place we could do it. There's a fabulous retreat center owned by a ministry here in Nashville that's about 45 minutes outside of Nashville. It's a 12-bedroom lodge out in the country. Nice. I was like, we could do it at the Hiding Place. And on the way home, I kind of thought, here's what we do. We do this, do this, do this. I got home and I went through my address book of all the people who had written me in the previous 2 years who had lost a child. And I did up a little brochure and I sent it to them. And within 2 weeks, our first retreat filled up.
Wow.
And so then we planned another one. And tomorrow we have our 18th respite retreat, which is amazing to us. So that means over the last 5 years, David and I have spent the weekend out in the country with, I didn't count it up, but 18 times 11 couples, 22 people. We've also done a respite retreat in the UK. We did one UK this last year. We're going to do one in Australia next year. And the weekends are, I don't know, sometimes when we tell people we do this, they kind of look at us like, are you crazy? And in many ways, especially at this point, on the Thursday, the day before we go, there's a bit in which David and I look at each other and go, we're doing this again? Because we're headed out into the country with 11 couples who have so much pain. Yeah. And so we stand inside the retreat center and these couples walk in and they are weighted down with sorrow. And, some of them, one of them wants to be there and the other one doesn't. In fact, one retreat, we have a guy walk in and go, I really don't want to be here. As he should. And we're like, we get that, David and I often talk about the fact, if there was something like this when we lost a child, we never would have gone.
Oh, wow.
That will be weird. And miserable. We won't like how they lead it. We don't like the other people. We don't want to talk about this with other people. So we totally get that. And so the fact that people trust us and come from all over the country, even from outside the country, to come to the retreats amazes us. But it speaks to the need and the desperation, in a sense, for help and the desire for godly help. There's lots of support groups for people going through grief. But unless Christ is at the center, it's just empty coping. Yeah. Right. And so they're looking for something to how do they deal with even their frustration and perhaps anger toward God? Right. And so they walk in the door, they're loaded down with grief. And So over the weekend, we share their stories with each other. And honestly, by the time we finish that, every couple has shared about their child and their loss. They're already beginning to go from strangers to intimate friends. And they look across the room and they hear what someone else says about what they've thought and felt. And they think, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one who's felt that way. Especially the dads, because women tend to more readily process their grief by talking with other women, but dads don't. And the men don't have many men friends that they can really talk to about their grief. And so they get there. They're the ones who generally don't want to come. And yet they get there, and it is such a relief to them to see tears on another dad's face. And to hear another dad just say, I miss my son.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked before we started going from that I love to laugh. And you know, the other thing is it's a sweet thing to get to share tears with people. And so we share a lot of tears over the weekend, but we also do laugh. I mean, some of these couples haven't laughed out loud since their child died.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to Saturday night, they're comfortable enough with each other, and it's been a pretty rigorous emotional day. They feel safe to laugh with each other. I mean, just so you know, I mean, couples who've lost a child, one of the reasons they don't want to laugh out loud in front of people who haven't lost a child is they have a fear that you may think they're over it when they're not over it yet. But worse than that, they have a fear that you may think they didn't really love their child if they could already be laughing.
Oh, goodness.
I've heard you talk before, Nancy, about how joy and sorrow can coexist.
Yeah.
And you never truly knew that until you had lost a child and been so overwhelmed with grief.
That's something my husband says a lot, and it is so profoundly true. It's not something you anticipate. And, you know, I imagine many of your listeners, even if they're listening, if they have lost a child, they're relating. If they haven't lost a child but know someone who has, they're thinking, oh, my goodness, you know, how can I be a good friend to someone who's lost a child? And to be a friend to someone who's lost a child, to be a safe person, to both be willing to cry and laugh with that person so that you could laugh. And I mean, because sometimes in the midst of sorrow, you need a vacation from it. I mean, you just need a break.
Yeah.
And it feels really good to laugh. And if you've got someone you can do that with, that they, you know, one, won't think that now you're fixed and over it. And number two, won't think it means that you didn't love your child. What a great friend.
Yeah.
Right.
So getting back to the weekend, so we do that on Saturday night. On Sunday morning is really a key time as I talk through 5 statements of Jesus that help us to hear Jesus in the midst of our sorrow and the implications they have for couples who are grieving loss of a child. Statements Jesus made, like in the Garden of Gethsemane, that I am overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Could you not watch with me 1 hour? And to know that Jesus understands what it's like to be overwhelmed with grief.
Yeah.
And that he also understands the loneliness of grief. So, because so many of these couples feel like all their friends ran and disappeared, which is exactly, Jesus understands that.
Yeah.
To hear Jesus say when the disciples wanted to know about the man who was born blind from birth. And you remember their question, who sinned? They're looking at, you know, who do we blame for this? Why did this happen? And Jesus doesn't answer with an answer to why it happens. He answers to his purpose in it, which is that the work of God might be displayed in your life. And so to talk to them about how God wants to put his glory on display in their life, not through the miraculous healing that they had prayed for their child, but that actually God would be doing a work in them of healing and restored joy and peace and acceptance, and that his glory at work in their character in the interior of their lives would radiate, that the world would see it. But probably the most significant statement in that setting is when I talk about Jesus' statement to John when he was on the island of Patmos, and Jesus says to John, don't be afraid. I'm the first and the last. I died. I'm living forevermore. But then he says this. He says, I hold the keys to death and Hades, or death and the grave. And, all these couples are sitting in the room and they have in their pockets the key to their room and this little lodge. And I ask them, so what does it mean that you hold the keys to your room? It means that you control access. Nobody goes through that door unless you open that door. And Jesus is saying, I hold the keys to death. And the implications of that is, it's one thing to say that when you're speaking to a big room and, there are lots of different needs. I tell you what, on that Sunday morning when we sit and we say that to that circle of 24 people, and there are couples whose, sons hung themselves in their dorm room or drowned in the bathtub or overdosed on drugs or died before they were born or were killed by a drunk driver, and to suggest that Jesus is the one who opened that door.
Right.
And that their child lived exactly the number of days that he intended, and it didn't catch him by accident, by surprise. And even though to them it seems like their child died way too soon, they really died right on time. But there's also the comfort in that though Jesus is the one who opens the door, he's the one who's on the other side of the door. Mm-hmm. So we don't surrender our children to an unknowing, uncaring nothingness.
Right.
And, those of us in the Reformed faith, we've given some thought to the sovereignty of God.
Right.
But we have people come to our retreats from all kinds of backgrounds and from no faith.
Yeah.
And to grapple with the sovereignty of God in context with the death of their child is very significant.
Yeah.
And, I think it's grappling with that for me is really what birthed so much of my pursuit of knowing God in the scriptures. After the death of my children, just to try to understand, okay, I'm trying to make sense of this. Yeah. Were we the victim of genetic odds 2 times? Or were you in charge of this, God?
It's not random.
Did you pick us out for this? And say, I think they can handle it. Because people would say to us, God knew that you would be faithful, so he picked you out for this. That didn't seem quite right either.
Right.
And so, that just sent us to the scriptures to try to understand in a deeper way, to understand God's sovereign providence in this world and the fact that nothing happens to me that hasn't passed through his sovereign hands, but that I do live in a world where there are other forces at work, and yet nothing happens that he is not in control of. And, to reckon with those things, it's not simplistic. And, it's challenging for us if we haven't had an experience like this to try to figure out, and then even more how to articulate.
Yeah.
For some people, and certainly for the couples who come to this retreat, it's not just a theological issue.
Right.
It's a personal issue.
Yeah. And in hearing that, one of the things that goes through my mind, Nancy, is that good theology has to have tender care attached to it, and tender care has to have good theology attached to it. The one without the other will kind of leave us in a bad state.
Because I often feel at these retreats that I am saying something that maybe their pastor or someone else has said to them,
right,
and they couldn't receive it from him because there was a sense in which they thought, you don't get it. You haven't been there. And I say, it's a hard thing to say, your child died right on time.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of points to why David and I do this, in that we feel like we're stewards. All of us are stewards of what God's entrusted to us. And God entrusts to many people many different things. And sometimes we love, the gifts that God has entrusted to us. And, other times God entrusts something to us that we wouldn't have chosen. And God has entrusted to me and David the loss of 2 children. And we're just trying to be good stewards of that. And so, there's a part of us that goes, why do we keep doing this? Because it's a heavy weight. I'm feeling that weight today.
Yeah.
As I head into this weekend, and I go over, I've got a sheet with pictures of all the people who are coming and the details about their loss. And I've got the sheets they sent me telling us what they're struggling with. And, we feel the weight. We feel mostly the weight of our inadequacy because David and I can't fix this.
Right.
And we don't have all of the answers by any means. And we haven't known all these people for years to know exactly what they need. And so we go into these weekends so desperate for the Holy Spirit to empower us to listen and love and challenge and discern what's really going on. But we keep doing it because we just feel like, well, who else is going to do it?
Right.
And we want to just be good stewards of what he's entrusted to us.
Yeah. Nancy, how can people find out about this ministry? Where can they go to find out about the respite retreats?
Just to my they can go to my website, nancyguthrie.com, and then there's a place there that says respite retreats.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Obviously, as you were sharing about that, one of the key themes is that your loss drove you more and more to the scriptures. And of course, the Lord's given you a ministry of writing, which you have written several very helpful things about suffering and having hope. But you've also written lots of other books and Bible studies. You've done a series of wonderful books on Jesus in the Old Testament, which I would encourage people to check out. But just hearing you kind of unfold this, as I've thought about just the number of books you've written just on the study of the Scripture, what I hear in your story is what drove you there to begin with was the struggle through the grief of loss.
Yes, and I think it was actually that search that led me to the place where I discovered biblical theology and seeing Christ in all the scriptures that then birthed the rest of it. Because, when you're searching for the question, why did this happen? There are lots of things we quickly become very philosophical about that. But ultimately, the biggest answer, the most significant answer that changed my paradigm about it and my own search for answers was Genesis 3. Ultimately, if I want to know why David and I both have a recessive gene trait, so that whenever we have a child, that child would have a 25% chance of having a fatal syndrome, it's because the curse has infiltrated all of creation, even our genetic code. And so why did this happen? Because of the curse.
Yeah.
And so that kind of answers the question, why? So then where is the hope in that?
Yeah.
And the hope is also in Genesis 3.
Exactly.
That there is one who's going to come and he's going to suffer. So thank you for that right at the very beginning, to know my Savior is going to suffer and understand my suffering. His heel's going to be bruised. He's going to suffer. But he's also going to be victorious. Yeah. And he's going to defeat the one who brought all of this suffering into the world. And so if I'm looking for hope, then I trace it through the Bible, the hope that is presented in the scriptures. It's not a psychological hope. It's not a temporary hope. It's not just a mere coping with this life hope. Hope in the scriptures is centered in a person.
Right.
The person of Christ. And so throughout the scriptures, we see this hope. And the whole point of it, we see the trajectory from Genesis 3 that he's going to come and he's going to deal with death. He came to defeat the devil. He came to free those who were slaves to the fear of death. And so he's going to come and accomplish that. And so you and I are living in that period of time now when we're experiencing the first fruits of what he accomplished on the cross, because we have the first fruits of that life that doesn't end. And yet we still live in bodies that die, and we still live in a world in which people we love die. But God is not finished. I mean, his redeeming plan for his world is that Jesus is going to come again. And when he comes again, death will be gone for good. I mean, that's the hope presented to us. In Revelation 21, when there'll be no more death, no more curse, no more tears. And so people can, look for coping mechanisms for grief. And, you hear all of this focus on the steps of grief and all of that kind of thing. But, I think the hope we have for grieving people, for all people, is found in a solid sense of understanding the biblical story and God's plan of redeeming all things through Christ. That's what helps us make sense of suffering. It's what's helped me make sense of suffering. And so then the books you're talking about in terms of the Seeing Jesus in the Old Testament series that I've done, that 5-book series, I suppose in many ways they have been birthed out of that.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, Nancy, I have this list of questions that I wanted to ask you, and they all seem so stupid now after listening to you. I could just listen to you all day. So I'm really sad that we have to wrap this up now, because I almost want to go to the weekend retreat myself. But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think this can be a really helpful podcast for everyone.
Yes.
And those who have had to deal with loss in their family, friends, and loved ones, and those who want to help others who have, and for the church. So thank you so much for letting us interview you today and letting us listen to you, and hopefully be able to have you back on since you're an honorary guy now.
Absolutely.
Oh, terrific. Well, thank you for letting me go on and on, share about this heart's passion.
It's great stuff.
That we have, and I'm grateful for it.
Thanks, Nancy.
We sang every song that Javi knew. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing. I mean, nothing, honey, if it ain't free.
Thanks for listening to Mortification of Spin, a podcast of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals, a coalition of pastors, scholars, and churchmen that exists to foster a reformed awakening in today's church. Head over to mortificationofspin.org to download the audio message, The Cross and Suffering from Ligon Duncan. While you're there, don't forget to check out the Mortification of Spin blog for more from Amy, Todd, and Carl. Tune in next week to hear the team talk
About City Church in San Francisco, at one time considered one of the largest evangelical churches in the San Francisco area. They have just released a letter saying that they're going to be an open and affirming church in regard to homosexuality.
Join us for that discussion, and thanks for listening.
Well, I think if Amy is the Yoko Ono of the reform world, I think Nancy is the Janis Joplin.
Hey, I think it's going to be so much better than me.
Yeah, I think.
Give me MGD and Yoko Ono.
Yeah, I think that.
I demand better treatment.
Yeah, Amy is far more likely to succumb to addiction than I think Nancy is. So,
No, I just have different addictions.
I'm getting the nunchucks out.
No, she's so healthy. Come on.
We know the darker side of her, Nancy. There's this clean public image.
There is no dark side.
Thank you, Nancy.
Nancy, thanks for the time, and thanks for your ministry.